even when you're trying to anticipate the future. Now, for Dewey, the focus of knowledge is always the future, not the past, the future. So that what you want is knowledge of the future. Now, how do you get knowledge of the future? Only in the form of a hypothesis. You see? Only on the form of a hypothesis. Now, granted, funded experience from the past may propose the hypothesis. But keep in mind that every problem situation is going to be somewhat different from any other problem situation. He's not speaking of general rules for the maximum number of people's happiness. You know, say, general rules based on empirical generalizations in the past. No. He's addressing a new problem and trying to know what's going to be the outcome of actions that we might perform in the future. And so the knowledge that you want is not of empirical generalizations from which you deduce something, but rather a hypothesis that is, oh yes, suggested, not deduced, suggested by funded experience from the past. But from the hypothesis, you then can deduce what is likely to happen if the hypothesis is true. But you don't know if it's true, because it's true of, if it's true at all, of the future. Yes. So this is not then a utilitarian kind of approach. First, it's oriented to the future rather than the past. Second, it's oriented to a distinctive particular situation rather than to generalizations about a supreme good, the happiness of the maximum number of people, or whatever, you see. And third, it's not a morality of rules in any case. It's not going to be a morality of rules in any case, but rather of how to resolve this conflict.
Weren't the empiricists also using hypotheses when they were doing their scientific research? For example, even in the 17th century? They just said unwittingly?
Yeah, but you see, he's talking about problem-solving thinking, where the emphasis is on knowledge of the future, you see. Now, the utilitarian, drawing on knowledge of the past, you see, is doing so with regards to some fixed ideal which extends from the past on into the future. That fixed ideal being whatever the utilitarian, particular utilitarian in mind, defines as the highest good for the maximum number of people. If it's Mill with his hedonism, it's the maximum pleasure of the maximum number of people. With what we call an ideal utilitarian, it may be the maximum good of a richer variety than that, you see. But it's always that there is this conception of a fixed end, a highest good, which applies in the past and in the future. You have that continuity. Now, with Dewey, you don't have that continuity. There is no highest end. Values are situational. Goods are situational. So in addressing a particular issue that's arising with regards to the future, it's without that degree of continuity from the past. The end is different. You see?
So, for example, Einstein's theories of relativity could have never been done in the 17th century when they would have only gone upon what Newton had said was fixed.
Now, wait a minute. He's not talking at this juncture about scientific discovery. He's talking about moral thinking. Okay? Yeah. This is the chapter about moral conceptions, you see. And what I'm doing is trying to distinguish the utilitarian ethic, which you're likely to identify him with if you're not careful, the utilitarian ethic from Dewey's situational kind of ethic. You see. The utilitarian, number one, is looking to the past. The utilitarian, number two, has some unchanging ideals all the way through to the future, which are translated into general rules. You see. But not Dewey in either of those points. Okay. The other thing in this moral reconstruction chapter is the comment he makes on the problem of evil, where, and this very much in the same pragmatic spirit, he says the real problem of evil is not the theoretical one, but the practical one. It's not a logical problem. How can you make the existence of purposeless evil, seemingly purposeless evil, logically consistent with the existence of a God who is altogether good, wise, and powerful? That's the logical problem. No, the real problem of evil is the practical one. What can we do about it? Back to problem situations. So he's not interested then in theoretical debates and understanding. For Dewey, those are irrelevant. Why irrelevant? Notice that word. Irrelevant because of the pragmatic theory of meaning. The term irrelevant means pragmatically meaningless. You see, the cash value is lacking. So distinguish in thinking about pragmatism, and I mentioned this I think on Monday, distinguish in thinking about pragmatism, Dewey included, the pragmatic theory of meaning, that the meaning of an idea is found in its practical consequences, the test of truth, that the truth of a theory can be tested experimentally, and the definition of truth, that truth is nothing but workability. And the problem is what somebody has called nothing buttery in the definition of meaning and the definition of truth. That nothing buttery in the definition of meaning, definition of truth. All right, that's my quick run-through of Dewey's book. Comments, questions? Are you finding it easy reading? My guess is it's the easiest since before Kant. You look at me, gape. Yeah, it's not difficult. You have to get used to his style. He writes in English rather than German, but his style is rather like Hegel's, in the sense that it is not linear thinking moving step by step from one proposition to another, such as you find in, say, Locke or Hume. It's more dialectical thinking, taking a concept and unraveling it in a thesis, antithesis, synthesis sort of style. Yes. So it's more a matter of unfolding a concept by contrasting the thesis of the old with the antithesis of the new. Get it? And so there's quite a bit of repetition. And you'll frequently find at the beginning of one chapter he reruns all he's done in the previous chapters and then moves on for another whirl at it. It's as if his thinking goes this way, you know, where each chapter advances a little, but only by getting a head start going back over what's gone before. Once you get used to that style, he reads very fast, very fast. Let's see. A word about pragmatism today. Dewey died in the 1950s, but pragmatism continues to have its influence of contemporary work. And you find it in a number of individuals. The two that I think I said we'd take note of, one is W.V.O. Quine at Harvard, who has a little book called The Web of Belief. The Web of Belief, in which he talks of the way in which ideas, beliefs, theories interweave like a spider's web to form a rather mutually supportive, unified, consistent whole. Sort of a coherence to a web of belief. What Quine is doing, you see, is rejecting any foundationalist approach and is maintaining that our beliefs do not come in isolated fashion such that they could be propositions at the end of a syllogistic proof. The web is what has grown. And the whole scheme tends to emerge in one's thinking in natural process. You find yourself believing a whole cluster of things interwoven. Now, underlying that notion, of course, is a naturalized epistemology. That is to say, the view that belief arises as a part of a nature-based psychology. That the value of our beliefs is instrumental rather than simply speculative. At an earlier stage in his work, Quine had repudiated the old analytic-synthetic dichotomy, criticized it very severely, pointing out that for all practical purposes, theoretical ones as well, a belief may be, a statement, a proposition rather, may be analytic or synthetic depending on its context. That's a contextual distinction. So that, for instance, the statement, and this is my example, not his, the statement, God is good, might be regarded by a theist as an analytic proposition. It's simply unfolding what is already